So hello, welcome back to another video about the iPad workflow, Lightroom, importing, backupping on the road sort of project. This is probably the first kind of conclusion video, because I kind of took a decision on one of the problems I was having, and well, let me explain, and some people most likely won't like it, but this is what I ended up with and what I'm going to do. So we were thinking about using these types of boxes. So this is the Western Digital one, where to backup, so it has a flash card reader. So the Canard box is another one, which is coming in different versions. There's one from DJI is coming out with one. In the end, I've decided not to use them. Why? Because, well, they are about the same weight as the whole iPad over here, and about the same weight as your camera. So I kind of think even the SD versions are SSD versions are quite heavy, and you still have to copy stuff off. They work over Wi-Fi. I don't think in the end it's a stable solution to do what I want to do. So for me, that's kind of now out of the picture. The second thing I was really getting excited about is being able to write back to your SD cards, either using the one from Apple, which turns out not to be working, but also some of the others that claim that you could write out files back to your SD card or to a memory stick. Turn out to be only working with JPEG. I have not found one from SanDisk, Leaf. I checked a few brands. I either mailed them or asked somebody online who had them if they could get writing raw back to these cards, a workable solution, and turns out that that's probably also a difficult route. So then I decided to take a step back and not trying to resolve it with the more technology and more plugs and hard disks and stuff like that. But what happens if you just do it the stupid way and maybe spend a little bit more money? Even that part I'm not sure about. But let's share what I've decided to do. So what I've decided to do is basically, and I put a stack already over here of SD cards. I will stick to a different kind of working altogether, where I make use, of course, that we have two flash cards in the camera, and in flash card number one I will always put the 128 gig one, so either the fast one or the slow one. And given that they are quite big, so they take about 3000 pictures, I assume that I only need to, and let's assume that we take 2 weeks as sort of the longest trip sort of idea. This is how I'm going to do it. So in card number one, I will have the 128 gigabytes that most likely I only have to swap one time during the trip, maybe 2 times. Because I can imagine that I would use the slower cards normally and the fast cards when I know I'm going to do some sport thingy or whatever, animals or whatever happens, that you say, well, maybe I want to have the high frame rate and I will fill up this card quite quickly. I think I might have 1 or 2 of these fast cards with me, because then you can't use the other slot anyway because of the speed of the buffer writing. So card number one will be the big ones, and I will only take them out and always keep them with the camera, or at least the camera bag. I will never put them in the hotel. I'll get back to that later. That will be my, let's say, the copy that I have with me, right? So most likely there will be 2 or 3 cards, and I only switch them out when needed. Now the other group of cards will be the ones I'm going to use daily. So this will be the workflow, and I will take them out daily. So in slot number one, of course, I had the 128 gig in there, and on the other one I have a fresh, basically smaller card, I think, and I'll put a 64 gig on there. So let me take 2 pictures. So I took 2 pictures. Let me also take one from that bag over there. So I took 3 pictures. Now, end of the day, I don't want to take card number one out. I never want to delete something from cards, if at all possible, because I think that's sort of an extra danger. So what I will do is I will take card slot number 2 out, which is the slower one. Basically, I could already protect it, right, which might be a good idea. I'm not doing it now because I'm just doing a demo, but I will protect it, and then I will put it in the Apple iPad. and will make my first kind of copy, right? Because I still have 2 copies, of course, the one in the camera and the one on this card. So what I will do is I've decided not to go against the flow. So what Apple wants me to do is import them basically into the Photos application. And I'm going to be fine with that. I will just import them like this. Goes quite quickly. Decide to keep them. If it's protected, it won't delete them anyway. And then this will be my copy that I will put in a Pelican case in the hotel. So basically I now have a copy on my iPad, I have a copy on the flash card that I will every day take out, and of course still have a copy of the camera because I'm going to keep my main copies with the camera at all time. So that's basically I already have 3 copies, right? Now the next step what I will do is I will go to Lightroom. And I have decided not to turn it on to automatic importing, and I will make a new folder every day, which is quite simple to do. Let's call it day number 4, just for this test case. Create a folder, go into the folder, where is it? There. Then import them from the roll that I just created. So let's say I took these 3 pictures. You kind of know which one are from today. You can also filter that if you want. But I will take these 3 pictures and import them into this folder. Now what happens, of course, is that I now copy them into Lightroom. And if I have internet available, it will automatically start syncing them to the cloud. I also decided, again, not trying to fight Lightroom and Apple. So basically Adobe and Apple. But let's see what happens if we follow their lead, right? I know it will be limiting in some ways, but it will also basically make their model work, if that makes sense. So these 3 pictures will automatically start syncing to the cloud. And I was paying, I think, $12 before for the normal amount of space. I decided to up that to $24 a month, which is, I understand, expensive, but then they will keep a 2 terabyte basically backup for me in the cloud. So the nice thing is, probably while we were talking, it has already updated because I'm here on a fast internet connection. It already probably sent it to the cloud. So now I have 4 copies, 1 in the cloud, 1 on my iPad, 1 on the camera or with the camera, and 1 in the hotel. And I think that's probably the way I'm going to do it. Every day I will sort of follow this quite simple and you don't have to wait for anything, almost kind of way of working. You could even do that several times a day. So let's assume you're going on a trip and you're in the car going backwards and you already wanna select some of the pictures. You could along the daytime you can actually take the card out and sync it several times. My guess is that's quite doable. There are some small I would say issues. One thing that I found out, which is kind of irritating, that even if you decide to mark them on the camera, and I put it on this button, so you can 5-star them basically, Sony in their wisdom have decided to only write that back to card number 1. And I don't want to import from card number 1, I want to import from card number 2. As you can see, hopefully you can see that the 5-star voting from the camera actually works. So the meta information from the button on the camera works, but only if you import from card number 1. And I don't want to do that because I want to switch that as little as possible. So there is something to say not to vote anymore on the camera, but to do it on the iPad, and that would mean, at least if you want to do it already, the tagging over the daytime, that you probably have to put the card in several times if you already want to start playing with the photos. But again, there's very little risk because of course you're not taking out your main card, you're just putting your secondary card in here. It will create the copy, you put the card back into the camera, by the end of the day you do it one more time and then put it on the other stack. So that's what I decided to do, and maybe there will be a product at some point that is small enough to make this, let's say, a stupid way of doing it. But now if you simply look at the size, I mean, it has to be a really small box to basically convince me that, and without a battery, without wires, this is probably the safest way to create a copy and the fastest way to do it. Now, in terms of money, I do understand, most of us already have quite a few cards, right? but even now I will probably get a few more cards for this way of thinking. I will probably add 64 gigabyte cards and 4 32 gigabyte cards. And the idea there is that you know some of these days, like the first day, the last day, you're probably not going to take more than 700 pictures, right? Even if you do, you have 1 or 2 extra in your pocket, no big deal. But realistically, you kind of already know how many maximum kind of pictures you're going to take on a day. And remember, even on this camera, which is an A7R III, with compressed RAWs, each of the pictures is 43 megabytes. That means that on a 32 gigabyte card you can have about 750 images, which is enough for, I would call, slow days or normal days. 64 gigabyte for 1500 and 128 gigabyte will give you 3000 pictures. So I think this is a workable solution, and let's assume, just a quick calculation, you want to go for 512 gigabytes, so the same size as this. Then you need, for example, let's say 512, let's say 64 gigabytes. It will probably set you back about $350 to get enough cards for, let's say, a 10-day period to do this. Now it sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but it's not that far off of these types of boxes, including the cables and all the frustration that comes with it, is not even that far off. So I have decided to go for the keep it stupid solution. So that's yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So leave in the comments what you think about the solution, or if you actually agree with me that this is a good way of doing it, although it looks a little bit stupid in first concept. Yeah, or come up with another product that you know that works, because I actually researched quite a few hardware solutions already, and I think there are very few options that mimic this in speed, risk level, weight, and price in the end. So yeah, see you in the next one, where I'm going to talk more about the real editing and the difference I'm finding between Lightroom, the old version, the new version, the mobile version, the iPad version. And also there, my gut feeling is that I will try to go with the flow what Apple and Adobe are thinking, and see what happens if I don't resist, but I kind of go with what they came up with and see where we get stuck. So yeah, see you in the next one. Bye bye.